Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Crysta and this is my first crochet vlog ever. I have wanted to do this for so long now, but I've just never been brave enough to do it. But I have a few friends who finally gave me the push to actually do it. And I was just super inspired by a bunch of other crocheters who also do crochet vlogs. I think the plan for my videos is to be more of like a crochet and chat, at least for now. I don't really know what classifies the difference between like a crochet vlog or a crochet and chat, but that's just like kind of the vibe I'm going for. I figured for this first one, I'll just do like more of an intro about myself and just my goals and like things I plan to do. So I'm just gonna go in a little bit about myself and my crochet journey. My name is Crysta, I'm 22 years old. I'm about to turn 23 in about a month, which is actually terrifying. I just graduated college in December. I have a degree in marine science, which probably seems like complete opposite of crocheting. I'm still looking for my big girl job. So I guess you could kind of consider that I'm full-time crocheting right now, even though most of my days are spent applying for jobs right now. I think one of my biggest personality traits is that I am a hobby enthusiast. I have way too many hobbies to count. As I'm filming this, I'm in the process of recording a TikTok / Instagram reel about all my hobbies, but my main hobby is crocheting, of course. But I also really enjoy reading, going to the gym. I would say those are like my main hobbies, but I'm a super crafty person in general. So recently I have learned how to knit. I have been getting into cross stitch. I kind of cross stitched a little bit when I was in high school, but I wasn't very good at it. So I'm like trying to get back into it. Other things about me, I am super into K-pop. I won't go too much into detail about it. Maybe in a separate video I can go like more in depth about like all the bands I like and stuff like that if enough people want it. But my alt groups are Stray Kids and Enhypen, but I have a whole list of groups that I listen to. Right now I currently live in South Carolina. I will be moving at some point in probably the next 6 months once I find a job. I don't plan to stay around here unless I get like a really good job offer. It's pretty limited around here, surprisingly. But at the time I'm filming this, we have been on like shutdown for the past week because of all the snow South Carolina got. I'm actually from Pennsylvania, so all the snow has been like nothing to me. But it's a different world down here. So for my crochet journey, I guess I'll get into that. It started when I was in high school. I believe I was 15. I was a sophomore in high school. Our librarian, she got a bunch of like crochet starter kits. And she had a sign for crocheting, stuff like that. And I saw some of my friends who asked her about crocheting and stuff like that. So I'm like, oh, I want to do that. So I'm like, oh, do you crochet? She's like, yeah, do you want to learn? I'm like, yes. So she taught me. I was actually a library aide. So I was in the library with her every day anyway. So it made it super easy to ask her and learn. So I spent the entire period crocheting. And I could not stop. But I actually ended up not doing it for that long after that day. I couldn't get into it. But I remember I almost asked for Christmas that year for a bunch of crochet stuff, but I didn't think I would ever get into it, so I'm like, oh, I'm not gonna bother asking for this. The summer after my sophomore year, my dad and stepmom got married, and my aunt flew in for the wedding. So there was a couple days where it was just me, my aunt, and my uncle at our house while my dad and stepmom were on their honeymoon. And I had talked to her about it, how like I had learned to crochet, but I don't really remember how. And I actually originally learned left-handed. It just made more sense to me in that moment, even though I'm right-handed. My aunt was also trying to get me into baking, so we ended up going to the store and she got me a bunch of baking and crocheting stuff. And she taught me how to make a granny square. And she got me the stuff to make my own granny square blanket. If I can find a picture of it, I'll insert a picture of it somewhere. And ever since then, I just could not stop. Some of my cousins on my stepmom's side, they were having kids. So I had spent months working on this granny square blanket for one of them. I will insert a picture of that too if I can find it. And I knew since then that I wanted to definitely make a business out of it. Since I was in high school, I didn't really know where to start with a business, so I just kind of made things for fun. I think maybe I had one person buy something off of me, but that was it. And that was before I knew you needed to be 18 to start an Etsy. I don't think I really knew what Etsy was at that point anyways. So fast forward to my first year of college. That is the year we moved to Florida. And this was also during COVID, and my college decided that we weren't going to come back after Thanksgiving break, that was already planned. So basically I was out of school for 2 months. And in this time we moved. There ended up being a lot of issues with our move. So we lived in a hotel for a couple months. I think I was only there for a month, but my parents were there for longer. And there wasn't really much to do, especially it was still during COVID and I didn't know anybody in Florida. So I spent a lot of time looking up videos on how to start a crochet business and all this stuff, and I ordered a bunch of yarn to be delivered once I went back to South Carolina. I also ordered just a ton of stuff in general, poly mailers and a scale and the tape and everything you need for shipping. Then we also went to Joann's right before I left and I bought a ton more yarn. Because of the move and all the issues we had all of our stuff in storage pods, the moving pods you could get. So all my yarn that I had planned to bring back was in storage and we couldn't access it at all, which really sucked. So I finally make it back to school, and because of COVID, we had a week to move in. Usually after Christmas break, you can't go back to the dorm rooms until the weekend before, but we had I think it was technically 9 days to go back. And I was just sick of being in the hotel room, so I went back super early and my roommates were already back and my friends were back, so it wasn't too bad. Even though I had prepared everything, I'll even put a screenshot of the date I made my crochet Instagram, January 2021. I was so determined, but I just didn't do it. I was just still struggling on where to start. I originally planned for my business to be just baby blankets. I realized pretty quickly that wasn't really going to work out. And I had a friend, he was a business major. He was giving me ideas and stuff and looking stuff up for me. Even though he kind of teased me for it, he still kind of helped me. And he was looking up super popular crochet items to sell, stuff like that. But I was still just kind of defeated and I'm this is just not happening. I still didn't stop crocheting during that time. I just wasn't doing anything to make a business out of it despite all the stuff I had bought for it. I think it was spring semester of my junior year of college. I was an RA and we were doing health and safety inspections, whatever, the stuff we were required to do. And we go into one of the rooms and the resident in there was crocheting and I'm oh my gosh, I also crochet, that's super cute. We just had a nice quick conversation about it. She told me about how one of the clubs on campus do a Christmas market every year. So I'm oh my gosh, I want to do that. I was no, that wouldn't be fair. She's a crocheter, I'm a crocheter. She told me about it. So to have 2 crocheters in a small market just wouldn't be fair. So I was going back and forth. And I'm well, I saw what she was making. She told me what she makes. I make different things, so maybe I could do it. So I had thought about it all summer, and I thought about oh, maybe I should be preparing if I potentially do this, and I ended up like not preparing for it at all. I had a super rough summer that year. Nothing like bad happened, but like I was just like not feeling it that summer. But it gets closer to the time of when the market is supposed to be, or around the time the market is. And I actually worked on my college campus, so I saw like all the clubs and meetings that came through. That was like part of my job. And I think I had saw the holiday market come through. And so I reached out to them on Instagram. I'm like, hey, I want to do this. Like, what do I have to do? Are there any crocheters already signed up? And they were super sweet about it. Like, no other crocheter signed up. It usually sells really well. So I was able to like get registered for the market. And this was in December of 2023. And that was pretty much the launch of Crysta's Crochet. I consider that more like my soft launch, just because I still really wasn't posting on social media at that point. So I ended up doing the market, and for it being my first market, it didn't go really bad. I'll insert a picture of it here. I didn't have very much inventory. I made a bunch of ear warmers just because it got like cold, and I'm like, oh, maybe these will sell. I had my baby blankets, I had some scrunchies, and I had kitchen towels with the crochet top. So I was pretty happy about how that went. It was just like such an amazing feeling that I finally did my first market and launched Crysta's Crochet. That was kind of it for that at that point. So I had went home, and then I was only home for a few weeks. So like there wasn't really any point to like putting anything on my Etsy or even like trying to start my Etsy, because I just didn't even know where to start. Especially like I usually fly home, so I didn't have like any of my inventory to do like the weights, the measurements, the pictures, or anything like that you need to start your Etsy. I didn't necessarily give up on it for a while. I just kind of put it on pause. I didn't really do anything with my social media. So then we go back for, this is January 2024, spring semester of my senior year. And at this point, I had been in a relationship for over 2 years, and he suddenly broke up with me. I was a super busy person at that time, so I was basically on campus all day between classes and work and everything like that. And a lot of the time, I would hang out with my ex-boyfriend at nighttime. So I wasn't like really in my room much. So when I was like sitting in my room every night after the breakup, it was super hard. Regardless of whether or not he broke up with me, I was still going to start an Etsy at that point. But I don't think I would have dedicated as much time to it as I did, because that just kind of became my distraction at nighttime. So I usually would try to do all my schoolwork during like daytime and when it was at least still light out, because like once it gets dark out, I just struggle to work. So that would just kind of be my project at nighttime. And like since then, I was just kind of stuck on it. So at that point, I was just like crocheting a ton of inventory, or at least trying to. I didn't know when I was going to be doing a market again, but I was just like trying to get things on my Etsy. But then my friend, who also crochets, told me that our campus was doing a market for students, and it was supposed to be like sort of a flea market sort of thing. Like it could be like if you have a craft and you want to sell it, but it was also like almost like a yard sale for your own stuff, if that made sense. And I wasn't gonna do it at first because like that wouldn't be fair to my friend. She told me about it. I don't want to take away from her, but she ended up not even doing it, so it worked out that I ended up doing the markets. There ended up being 2 markets that semester, and I ended up learning how to crochet plushies. And I learned those sold really well at my markets. Before then, I had kind of explored with crocheting plushies a little bit, but I just wasn't very good at it. It turns out I was crocheting all my plushies inside out, and I didn't realize that until I watched a tutorial. But once I learned how to properly make plushies, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And everybody just loved them, and the first market that semester went awful. I think I only sold like 3 things. But then the second market, when I had all these plushies and all this stuff, I probably sold over 20 things. And for being on a college campus, I was pretty happy with that. So yeah, since then, I have just been making a ton of plushies, which is kind of funny since I'm crocheting a blanket right now, but I still like kind of like to explore like different things to crochet. So I ended up staying at college an extra semester, and they had 4 more of those markets during the fall. This was fall 2024, so pretty recent. And I did all those markets, and they were just so great. So that like brings us to now. I guess like the past year I've been working on growing my social media, and I think like making a YouTube video is my last step. So for the next part of the video, I want to talk about my 2025 goals, and maybe doing this will help hold me accountable for them. My first goal that I have is also probably every other crocheter's goal, is to use all the yarn in my yarn stash. I had a problem of just randomly buying all this yarn because it looked pretty, specifically when I was in high school, and that's when I was planning on doing baby blankets. So I have all this acrylic yarn because I like was fully convinced that the Red Heart Super Saver yarn was the best thing in the entire world. And it's not bad yarn, but it's just like that's not my focus now. And with that, I'm not saying I'm necessarily on a yarn buying ban, but I'm trying to be more mindful about the yarn I'm buying, because I want to restock my yarn stash with yarn that I actually use. I've definitely learned I really like Bernat blanket yarn for my plushies. I also really like the Big Twist Posh, and I want to get more of it. Who knows with the whole Joanne situation right now. The other issue I had this issue when I was in high school, and I also had this issue last year. Like hypothetically, I bought 5 skeins of yarn. I'd get like each one was a different color. And looking back on it now, I think it would have been better, like maybe I got 2 skeins of red and 3 skeins of blue. Because now that like I've realized I start getting limited on projects when I only have scraps left. And I know it can get like kind of weird with dye lots and stuff. So that's my first goal. I'd also like to write and release my first pattern. I have zero idea what I even want to make, but I would really like to do that this year. I would like to crochet some items to donate. I've looked at the preemie hats and baby blankets for hospitals, but I have to see more so like what my local hospital will take, if they will take, stuff like that, and make sure I'm just like meeting their regulations. I'd also like to attend my first craft show or market that's not on my college campus, but it's just like trying to find a show around here that I can do. I'd also like to use every pattern that I have in my pattern library, because some patterns I've had for so long that I've never used, but I was like so focused on like my market prepping and all of that I didn't even like bother to try to use them. And my last goal is I would like to keep track of all my stats every month, like projects and sales and my yarn used and all of that stuff. I plan to do like monthly recaps. Right now the plan is that it's just going to be short form content for my monthly recaps, but with maybe my crochet and chats, I'll throw it in there as well. And then there's 3 specific projects I would like to finish this year, make and finish. Is I want to do a year-long project. I know everybody does like the temperature blankets, but I cannot commit to that. So I think I'm going to do a snake book tracker where like every stripe on the snake correlates to a different book. And I think what I'm going to do is the color that goes with the book, it's just going to be like related to the colors on the cover. Just because I mostly only read romance, so trying to do a color for every genre just didn't make any sense. And I think I'm going to do like a neutral color to divide every book. But I think the neutral color is going to be how I read the book. So like, I go back and forth between audiobooks, physical books, and my Kindle. So I'll have a color for if I read it on my Kindle, I'll have a color if I read the physical book, and I'll have a color for if I listen to the audiobook. That probably makes zero sense, but when I like actually start doing it, it'll probably make more sense. I would also like to finish this tablecloth I started for my stepmom a really long time ago, like years ago. Unfortunately, when I was home, I left it there because I flew home with way too much yarn and not thinking that it's like, oh, it's Christmas time. I'm gonna have to fly back with presents and stuff. So now a lot of my yarn is in Florida. So that's a future issue. And then I would also like to do the 6-day star blanket that everybody's doing, but probably by the time I finally start it, I think the trend of it might be over, but that's also a future problem. And then some of my, I have some follower goals. I'm hoping by the end of 2025 to have 1,000 followers on Instagram and TikTok. YouTube, I'm hoping for 500 subscribers. Threads, I'm hoping for 200. And then Facebook, I kind of just put that on as a joke. I'm hoping to get 100. I have it written down at the time what my current follower counts were, but I think they're wrong now. I think on Instagram, I'm sitting around 280. On TikTok, I think I'm around like 510, 511. TikTok, I have YouTube, I think I'm around 60. Threads, I think I'm around 70. And Facebook, I believe, is still 15. Even if I don't hit my goals, I'm just super thankful for the following I do have. That's pretty much it for like my main goals. Another goal that I don't have written down is to use up a lot of my crochet supplies. I just have a lot of stuff that I bought. I had stuff I was given. And I just like want to try and use that up so it's just not sitting around. I have stuff like safety eyes I want to use up. I was doing like keychains and wristlets for a while, and I have all the hardware for that. So I'd also really like to use that stuff up just because like I know what I like to use now. So I'd rather like only have that stuff on hand, but I still want to use up the stuff I do have because I don't want to waste it. And if I don't end up using it by the time I move this year, then I'll probably just like donate it or give it to someone who can use it. Maybe in a future video, I'll kind of go over like all the stuff I'm trying to use up specifically on top of all my yarn, maybe like next video. I think that's all I wanted to talk about in this video. I think the goal will be to post every Friday, and maybe I'll like film a little bit every single day of like what I crochet, what I'm up to. I think maybe next video, if I get enough comments with questions, I'll do like a Q&A for things I just didn't cover today. But I am hoping to like stick to like the crochet and chat / crochet vlog. I don't know how much of like my personal life I will throw in there. I don't know what people are necessarily interested in. So definitely comment some questions that I can answer for next video. And if you have like any ideas, please let me know. Maybe I'll do some challenges and stuff. I know I have a lot of like video series I plan to make on TikTok, like using up all my yarn, my book tracker, stuff like that. So I'll definitely throw that in there. Thank you so much for watching my first crochet video. Please bear with me. It's probably not going to be the greatest, and I don't know how my video editing skills are going to be, but hopefully if I keep doing this, it'll get better over time. But yeah, I hope everybody has a wonderful rest of their day. Bye!